What's up, guys? It's KB. Make sure you subscribe to the Underground Sports Philadelphia YouTube channel. Click the bell icon down below so you don't miss a single video from us. And thanks for tuning in to another video from Underground Sports Philadelphia. Now let's get into it.
Philadelphia, baby, you're going to love it. Best sports fans in the world. Actually, the worst, but that's what makes them the best.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome into episode number 868 of Underground Sports Philadelphia, presented by the city of Vineland. It's your boy KB coming at you solo dolo for now with a midweek episode, because later on in the show for Waterdogs Weekly, we will be joined by the one, the only, reigning Defensive Player of the Year 2025 Premier Lacrosse League champion, former number one overall pick in the 2023 PLL College Draft, and now doing the damn thing for the Dogs as he shook up PLL free agency this winter. That is Gavin Adler joining us here on the program later on in the show. An absolutely awesome conversation that you don't want to miss. Got a lot of awesome details from Gavin about his free agency saga, his recruiting story, and how he wound up at Cornell, plus how he's fit in with the Waterdogs as the season has rolled around. You don't want to miss it as the Dogs sit in first place in the Premier Lacrosse League's Eastern Conference heading into Columbus, Ohio this weekend. We will talk more King James to the Philadelphia 76ers because, ladies and gentlemen, still smiling through it all because I can't believe this is our life. LeBron James, Philadelphia 76er. We'll talk some more Bron, just get more thoughts flushed out for the people. We'll talk Jalen Carter as he's finally signed his long-term extension with the Eagles. It's been a while since we've talked some birds here on the show, but we've got some fun news there with Jalen Carter's extension and the Eagles now at training camp as the season is right around the corner, which is crazy to think about. And we will also talk about the free fall that our Philadelphia Phillies are on and how just like dastardly this whole post-All-Star break has been, and this team being not just a snooze fest, but it feels like the Grim Reaper is knocking at their door if they don't wake up and put their glasses on and realize, hey, we need to start seeing things a lot better than what we are. So we'll talk all about that. But before we get into everything, make sure you guys are following us on the socials at Underground PHI across the board. We're on every social platform. Please follow us. It helps the show tremendously. Subscribe to the pod, Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts in audio form. Leave those 5-star ratings and reviews. It goes a long way for helping this show continue to grow. Helps more people find Underground Sports Philadelphia, plus our entire catalog of podcasts here at Underground Industries. And of course, guys, subscribe to the Underground Sports Philadelphia YouTube channel, youtube.com/@UndergroundSportsPhiladelphia. Leave a like on the video, drop a comment down in the comment section below, and smash that bell icon so you know whenever new videos go live. Please subscribe. I'm tired of seeing a 12 next to our subscriber number. Can we get it to 13? Can we get it to 15? Can we get it to 2K? Can we get it into the 10K era? Let's make shit happen on YouTube. youtube.com/@UndergroundSportsPhiladelphia. And this show, ladies and gentlemen, is proudly presented by the city of Vineland. And listen up, everybody, because your second chance to head over to the Enrico Serra Bandshell for the Recreation Summer Concert Series is right around the corner. It's back at the Enrico Serra Bandshell, that Recreation Summer Concert Series at Giampetro Park, with free shows beginning at 7 p.m. Bring the family and enjoy unforgettable nights of live music. Your next opportunity is Saturday, August 22nd. Kevin Kenny, the Chesney Show. And then on Saturday, September 19th, you'll get a chance to rock out with Van Halen Nation. Country favorites, Van Halen hits. There's something for everyone. Again, that's the Vineland Recreation Summer Concert Series. Free at Giampetro Park. Bring your lawn chair, bring your friends, and enjoy the music. Vineland, New Jersey, where it's always growing season.
Hello, everyone. I'm Mayor Anthony Finucci, and I'm excited to invite you to the 9th Annual Vineland Food Truck Festival on Sunday, September 13th, starting at 11 a.m. Enjoy an incredible lineup of food trucks, live music throughout the day, local crafters, and the amazing community spirit that makes Vineland so special. Bring your family, bring your friends, and come hungry for a fun-filled day of great food and great memories. We can't wait to see you at the Violent Food Truck Festival 2026.
A big thank you to Security 21 Security Systems and Paul J. Gillespie Incorporated for their continued support of this podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, Jalen Carter is who we are starting today's show off with. Jalen Carter and the Philadelphia Eagles have agreed to a new 4-year contract extension, $152 million, worth up to $160 million, making him the highest paid defensive tackle, not just in the NFL, but in NFL history. He's the highest paid defensive tackle, surpasses Jeffrey Simmons, surpasses Chris Jones, guaranteed $106 million, AAV of $38 million. It's an awesome deal. Drew and Jason Rosenhaus negotiated the deal for Jalen Carter. It's, like I said, it's the richest for a defensive tackle in NFL history in both guaranteed money and AAV. Jalen Carter, past 2 seasons, Pro Bowler, Super Bowl champion, 13.5 sacks, 37 quarterback hits, and 108 tackles in his first 3 years in the league. The Eagles picked up his 5th-year option earlier this season with the extension. He's now under contract through 2031. Was asked at his press conference if it was important for him to be the highest paid defensive tackle, and he said it was important for him to stay in Philadelphia. And I think that just goes to show you how incredible the Eagles are at, one, finding people of good character. And I know there's been a lot of drama about Jalen Carter from people online who are just, big-time haters and don't do any type of research whatsoever. I also think it's a testament to seeing just Jalen Carter's growth as a player at just 25 years old and seeing where his maturity level has just continued to skyrocket from an already awesome level to him winding up in Philadelphia. I think was probably the best thing that ever happened to him, to get paired with Jordan Davis, to have Nakobe Dean here for a while, to have a bunch of these Georgia guys who, he was around and make things comfortable for him, and just showing that the Eagles were not afraid to invest in him, and now he's put in the work and gotten another investment. And I think it's just such a big, big, big part of this Eagles ecosystem where Jalen Carter, arguably best defensive tackle in the NFL, arguably, pound for pound, when he's on the field, his presence is felt on the Philadelphia Eagles defensive line, on the Philadelphia Eagles defense, quite frankly. When he is off the field, you can tell when Jalen Carter's off the field. I think it's such a massive signing here to have Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, both under contract long-term, to have Zach Bond here long-term, to have, Quinion and Coop are going to be up for extensions next offseason. You're going to extend both of those guys. Andrew Makuba's on his rookie deal. You just brought in Jonathan Grenard, who obviously, if you missed that news, he's dealing with an injury, but it doesn't seem like it's going to be a long-term thing. The Eagles' defense is set up for incredible success long-term. And I now that Jalen Carter is here and it's guaranteed that he's going to be here for a while, it's super, super just weight off your shoulders. You don't have to worry about it. And you look, Nolan Smith, Jalix Hunt, Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, Ty Robinson, Moro Ojomo, Zach Bond, Trot Jr., Smile Munden Jr., Jahad Campbell, Q, Cooper DeJean, Marcus Epps, who I think has done a great job in his second go-round with the Eagles, Andrew Makuba, Michael Carter is still here as well. I think this team has such a dearth of young talent on the roster defensively, and it's only going to continue to grow. It's only going to continue to prosper. You bring in Jonathan Jones this offseason. You brought in Reek Woolen this offseason, which is going to be massive for this team, and it would be awesome if he stays here somewhat long-term as well. You brought in A.J. Epinesa this offseason, who's in his prime. I'm just ecstatic with what this defense looks like on paper. And obviously, things will change. Like, there's going to be shifts on this team. There's going to be different, outlooks once we're up to game speed. But just on paper and looking at what this roster looks like as of right now, it's pretty awesome to see kind of where this whole defensive unit is going to kind of shift to and what they're looking to do defensively. And I think it's going to be a lot of fun this Eagles season, and Jalen Carter's just a huge part of that puzzle. And when you look at just what he's been able to do, like I mentioned, the stats there in his first 3 seasons and Super Bowl champion, is a huge reason why this team won that Super Bowl. He's not going to turn 26 until April. He just turned 25 pretty much. He was second in the Defensive Rookie of the Year in 2023. Pro Bowler, like I mentioned, AP, All Pro, 2024 All Pro, second team, I think that was. He was a 2024 All Pro, which rightfully so. He crushed it in every which way. He's always on the field when he's healthy. Sorry, his first team All-Conference. Pro Football Writers in 2024. Second team AP All-Pro. First team defensive line, NFL Players Association. He's very, very steady, very, very consistent. And you look at his playoff performances too, like that run in 2024, 3 pass deflections, a forced fumble, 2 sacks, 9 tackles, 7 QB hits in 4 games. He's just everything that you would want in a quintessential modern-day NFL defensive tackle. He's fast, he's ferocious, and the fact that he's going to be an Eagle long-term through 2031 when, he was drafted 2023. So he's going to be here well past a decade, in my opinion. And the investment there from the Eagles to show that he was going to be a cornerstone player for this team when they drafted him in 2023 with the 9th overall pick, it just shows you that they knew. They were ahead of the curve on everything. They understood what came with Jalen Carter, and they were going to make sure that he was put in the best possible, spot to be successful. And Jalen Carter, being a long-term Philadelphia Eagle, is good for this organization. I want him to be an all-time Eagles legend. He's one of my favorite players to watch on the field, and to see him get this payday that he has absolutely earned and he absolutely deserves is nothing short of awesome. You want to see those guys succeed. You want to see those guys get that due diligence there, and it's really, really dope to truly understand that the Eagles believe in a guy like that. The Eagles believe in just talent, but they believe in good people, and I think Jalen Carter fits that mold full send, and it's going to be really, really dope to have him on this team through 2031. Let me know what you guys think about Jalen Carter getting the extension. You can leave me a voicemail at speakpipe.com/undergroundsportsphiladelphia. That voicemail line is open 24/7, 365. We'll react to voicemails, whether it's about the Birds, the Phillies, the Waterdogs, the Union, the Sixers, the Flyers, whatever it may be. Speakpipe.com/undergroundsportsphiladelphia. Leave that voicemail for me, and I'll react to them on the show. I would love to hear from you guys. And stop calling the radio stations, and you can call here, and I'll react to what you say. And if it's silly, I'll tell you you're silly. If it's not, I'll react accordingly. speakpipe.com/underground sports Philadelphia. And our Eagles talk there, brought to you by our friends, the incredible, the incomparable 47 brand. Guys, 47 is an apparel and lifestyle brand made for sports fans, by sports fans. I'm rocking the Eagles Super Bowl 59 champions hat here. Just a nice, simple, clean look. I love 47. It pairs perfectly with my Dewani shirt. 47's got incredible apparel as well. They're just the best in the game. You see me out and about, I'm rocking a 47 cap on my dome, okay? That's just how I roll. They're the best in the game. I love the hitch style, the rope hitch, the diamond cut hitch. All the hitch styles are my favorite. I love the cleanup style as well, especially once I get a fresh cut. They fit perfectly on my head. You guys can be styling and profiling. Gear up for Eagle season. Before you know it's going to be here, and you want to look fresh to death when the Birds take the field on September 13th. Use our link in the description. Shop with 47. Gear up for Eagle season. Get your Phillies gear, your Flyers, your Sixers, your Union, your favorite NASCAR driver, your favorite college team, what have you. Fill up your cart to the gills. But before you check out, make sure you join the 47 family. That is their rewards program. You earn points for every purchase you make when you join the 47 family, and you get free shipping on all orders when you join the 47 family. So use that link in the description, shop with 47, fill up your cart to the gills, get free shipping on all orders, and earn on every purchase when you join the 47 family. And we thank 47 for being a proud partner of Underground Sports Philadelphia and the unofficial official headwear partner of Underground Industries. Moving right along, ladies and gentlemen, LeBron James. LeBron James is a Philadelphia 76er. It's still crazy to think about that it's real, that it's true, that it's here, and I just... It's incredible that LeBron is... I'm just pumped. I'm just pumped about LeBron. It just doesn't feel real sometimes. Like, I sit back and I'm like, yeah, LeBron's a Sixer. LeBron is a Sixer. And apparently, LeBron and ESPN are closing in on an agreement for a behind-the-scenes documentary series that will be similar to Michael Jordan's The Last Dance, according to The Athletic's Andrew Marchand. The documentary is expected to use footage from James's entire career, including some never-before-seen footage, and it's expected that LeBron will also have a camera crew documenting his time with the 76ers this season, to which Maverick Carter said that the Last Dance style documentary thing is not true because LeBron doesn't even know how much, LeBron has no timetable on how long he's going to play. Like, he's not set on this being a one-year thing. Like, Rich Paul said, maybe Philly gets 2, maybe Philly gets 4. Like, it's not a set-in-stone thing, so it's just rumors circulating out there. Another cool thing, this is according to Fanatics, the LeBron James Sixers jersey sold more than any player switching teams, surpassing Shohei Ohtani in 2023 in the first 48 hours after he said he was coming to Philly. That right there is crazy. The fact that he surpassed Shohei Ohtani, like, I understand LeBron is a global icon, but you got to think the Dodgers jerseys that were purchased in Japan, because Shohei has the entire nation and entire country of Japan in the palm of his hand, rightfully so. To think about LeBron surpassing that is crazy. And I don't know if those are just domestic sales that LeBron surpassed or what have you, but to just think about anybody surpassing Shohei in anything with his switch from the Angels to the Dodgers is mind-blowing. But it just shows you that Philadelphia is willing to get behind everything and anything possible. But yeah, LeBron James, man. I know we talked about it a lot on the last episode, but it still hasn't fully hit me yet. It still has not fully hit me that LeBron chose Philadelphia. The fact that LeBron decided to say, yeah, I'm going to spend, this final decision I'm going to make for my NBA career, it's going to be the Philadelphia 76ers. And you look at the organizations that LeBron has played for. Gets to get drafted and play for his hometown team, not just once, but twice. Okay? And the Cavs, because of LeBron, I think, in my opinion, grew in notoriety full send. Like, beyond belief. The Cavs, in my opinion, they've only been around since 1970. And the fact that, LeBron is from there and gets to play for them, and the team came into play in 1970 as an expansion team with the Portland Trailblazers and the Buffalo Braves, and LeBron changed that organization forever. And then you look at the Miami Heat, and you look at the Heat and what they were able to accomplish with LeBron there, and they were founded in 1988, much later than the Philadelphia 76ers. And, they had success before LeBron got there with Dwayne Wade and Shaq, and they were able to do a ton of things in such a short amount of time. And then you look at the Lakers. Like, LeBron goes to a historic franchise there. But now he comes to the 76ers, where you want to talk about historic. Like, this team has been around since 1946. That's like end of World War II, when they were the Syracuse Nationals and then became the Sixers in 1963. But it's crazy. Like, LeBron joins the pantheon of the Dolph Shays, the Dr. J's, the Karl Malone, or the Moses Malone, Allen Iverson, Bobby Jones, Mo Cheeks, Billy Cunningham, Hal Greer, Joel Embiid, Wilt Chamberlain. Like, names upon names. And now you can add LeBron James to that as, like, being one of the historic players to ever don a Sixers jersey, and he hasn't even worn one yet. He hasn't even worn one yet. That's the craziest part of this whole thing, is, like, he hasn't even been introduced. He hasn't even, none of that has happened yet, and you're mind blown that you have arguably the greatest player of all time going to be wearing Philadelphia, or in this case, Phila, across his chest. That, to me, is just... It blows your mind in so many ways, and I know I've been saying mind blown a ton, but it's something you never expected to happen. And when it does happen, you're just like, holy shit, like, we get to root for LeBron. Like, I've genuinely been, like, seeking LeBron footwear because he's a Sixer. And he's going to be a Sixer. I want to get the LeBron Fruity Pebbles. Like, I want to get some sort of LeBron shoe. And it's just... It blows my mind that he is a 76er, man. The fact that LeBron is a 76er. Like, you think about the athletes in this city. Jalen Hurts, Saquon Barkley, Devontae Smith, Jalen Carter, Bryce Harper, Kyle Schwarber, Zach Wheeler, Christopher Sanchez, Joan Duran, Trevor Zegras, Porter Martone, Matvey Michkov, Jamie Drysdale, Joel Embiid, VJ Edgecombe, happy birthday to the boy, Tyrese Maxey, Jaylen Brown, C.J. Kirst, Michael Sowers, Kieran McCardle, Gavin Adler. And now LeBron James, Kai Wagner, Andre Blake, Kevin Sullivan, and now LeBron James. It's just incredible that we have so many superstars who call the Philadelphia market, they call Philadelphia home, and we get to root for these players on a night in and night out basis. It's really, really exciting, and it's something I don't think I will ever not get giddy about thinking of when I think of the Sixers right now. It's LeBron. LeBron James is a Philadelphia 76er. And you know what I say to that, everybody? I propose a toast from our friends, the ever so divine Kenwood Original Beer. Kenwood Beer is the official beer partner of Underground Sports Philadelphia. It's a refreshing light beer, just 4.1% ABV, 120 calories, just 8 grams of carbs. You guys can use the Kenny Finder at kenwoodbeer.com to see who has Kenwood Original Beer on tap in the Philadelphia, New Jersey, Pittsburgh, Maryland, and Delaware areas. You can also find Kenwood Original Beer at your local liquor stores, convenience stores, and grocery stores in those markets. Just use the Kenny Finder to see who has it available near you. Again, that's kenwoodbeer.com. Crack open a nice cold Kenwood Original Beer to celebrate LeBron being a Sixer, celebrate Jalen Carter's contract extension, and so much more. Must be 21 or older to do so. And as always, guys, please drink and celebrate responsibly. Ladies and gentlemen, we have an incredible conversation on this episode with the ever so illustrious reigning Defensive Player of the Year in the Premier Lacrosse League, 2025 PLL champion, former number 1 overall pick in the 2023 PLL College Draft, and the number 1 mover and shaker in PLL free agency history as he left the New York Atlas to join the Philadelphia Waterdogs this past offseason and has become a staple and just a shutdown defender in front of whomever is in cage for your Philadelphia Waterdogs, and that is number 97, Gavin Adler. We had an incredible conversation. It's the first time I've ever really gotten a chance to talk to Gavin in a one-on-one setting, and it was great. I couldn't have been happier with just how conversational we were, and it's not the last time you're going to hear from Gavin Adler on our airwaves. Let me just tell you that. He was the absolute best, and I hope you guys enjoy it. And our conversation here on Waterdogs Weekly on Underground Sports Philadelphia is brought to you by the PLL app and our PLL app code with the Outside the Box podcast. Because, guys, the best way to keep up to date with everything going on with Gavin Adler and the Philadelphia Waterdogs, everything across the Premier Lacrosse League and the Women's Lacrosse League, is in the PLL app. It's your one-stop shop. You get articles from the beat writers like Michael Bolger, your Philadelphia Waterdogs beat writer. You get post-game highlights from every single game. You get press conferences. You get behind-the-scenes videos. You get looks at all the PLL and TLN original podcasts and video series that they're doing. Plus, it's a gamified app, PLL Fantasy, daily trivia to answer. There's tasks to complete in the app every single day that you earn experience points for. And when you level up in the app, you unlock perks like PLL shop discounts, ESPN Plus subscriptions, and the biggest one, discounted ticket prices, which you want to get your tickets now for August 15th and 16th at Subaru Park when the Philadelphia Waterdogs have their homecoming weekend doubleheader paired with the Women's Lacrosse League Championship game, the inaugural championship game for the WLL happening in our city. You don't want to miss it. Use the link in the description. It's pll.app, or go to the App Store, Google Play Store on your phone and download the PLL app. And when you go to the redeem code section in the app, type in OTBPOD. That's OTB Pod. Right down there on the screen if you're watching on YouTube. OTB Pod. And you get 500 XP on your account. So download the PLL app today and keep up to date with everything going on in the PLL, the WLL, and with your Philadelphia Waterdogs in the PLL app, and get 500 XP on your account and level up from level 1 to 2 just like that. when you type in OTB Pod in the redeem code section in the PLL app. Without any further ado, ladies and gentlemen, I think we move right along and we kick it to our incredible conversation with Philadelphia Waterdogs defenseman and reigning Defensive Player of the Year, Gavin Adler, right here on Underground Sports Philadelphia's Waterdogs Weekly series. All right, everybody, we now welcome on a very, very, very special guest here for this week's edition of Waterdogs Weekly on Underground Sports Philadelphia. It is quite arguably the biggest free agent shakeup player in Premier Lacrosse League history, and he is your defenseman for the Philadelphia Waterdogs. That is Gavin Adler joining us this week. Gavin, great to see you, my friend. Congratulations on the Denver doubleheader sweep, and great to have you on the show.
Thanks, Kyle. Appreciate you having me on. Fired up to get going here.
Let's talk about Denver. We were talking a little bit before we started recording, but just the overall energy that you guys presented out there. And, I know Josh Yago talked about it in the post-game press conference where you guys kind of self-played victim. And it was like, oh, woe is us. Like, we have to deal with the delay. We have to deal with this, and kind of used it as fuel. Take me through just the waiting game from that first game. For anybody that doesn't know, the game prior to the Waterdogs playing on Friday night was delayed due to weather, and that pushed the Waterdogs start time back exponentially from where it was supposed to start. But just as a player, and like we were saying, like, you get hopped up on adrenaline, you're geared up, especially for you in particular in that specific game. Take me through just that waiting game and what it's like still having to be dialed in and locked in, even though it's kind of up in limbo and up in the air of when you guys are actually going to start.
Yeah, so the week prior, we actually had that rain delay versus the Archers, so we had a little experience coming in of what that was like. But obviously unexpected. We were ready, I think, to get on the bus at like 6:30, and we just got told it's pushed back 15 minutes, another 15 minutes. Now it's 30 minutes, and we're waiting for the other game to start with the lightning strikes. So it was just a waiting game, and guys were just hanging out in a room, talking shop, trying to buy time, talking game plan, X's and O's and all that. And, like you said, that is the challenge of staying locked in and, thinking you're on schedule and routine for, one time, but, it's got to be pushed off for another. But at the end of the day, everyone's in the same boat. But obviously with the time change and how late it was definitely weird. But at the same time, you got to be locked in and ready to play whenever it is. So it was awesome for us. Huge weekend in general, statement for us, and honestly a season defining weekend in general.
When you have a weekend like that, and there is so much kind of pinned against you, whether it's the weather delay, you're traveling and changing time zones, you're playing in altitude, and you get tossed a doubleheader that's not in your home market, and you have to kind of battle through two games for the first time in a season where you guys do have a lot of rookies and first-time PLL players as well. For you, as somebody who's kind of been through a few homecomings, a few doubleheaders in your career so far, what was kind of the message to the six guys who hadn't gone through that doubleheader, after such a long game to get through that Atlas game that was so back and forth and ends up being a one-score game, to then have to turn around less than 24 hours later and go up against a team who's also fighting, trying to win, and it's their home field, so you have the fans going against you as well. What was kind of the message for you guys as veterans who have been there, done that with the doubleheaders to prepare, your six rookies on the team?
Yeah, the approach going in, obviously the thought of going 2-0 is great, but you can't go 2-0 without going 1-0. So it was just really focus on Friday's game versus the Atlas, take care of business, rest, recover, move on to the next one. But it was really just keeping that focus throughout Thursday when we got there, through practice, up until the delay, through the delay until the game, and just keeping guys focused on, what's at stake there. We take care of business there. You got to wake up on a really short rest, recover, whatever it is, block out the noise. Maybe we played later, they had more time to recover, whatever it is. We were hungry. We knew what was at stake, what we were going for, and it kind of showed on the field. And, the young guys just followed the great leaders we have on the team, and we ended up putting out that performance, just as we followed through all the way from Thursday to Saturday.
I know we were talking a little bit too, last week's guest, Sean Byrne, on the show goes 2-0 in his first two PLL starts. how impressed were you with just his poise and kind of demeanor in both of those games to kind of anchor you guys on the defensive end and, kind of keep everything in check for you and make sure that you guys did walk away 2-0 and, to see how he performed in such a close game on Friday night and then bounce back and have just, an unbelievable second game where you guys win 18-8 and you lock down one of the best offenses in the league.
Yeah, to start, as you said, impressed. I was definitely impressed, but not surprised at all. Just, seeing him all year, even seeing him throughout college. I knew once he got his shot, he was going to make the most of it. I think that Archer's game was not a good indicative of, who he really is. He gets thrown in there mid-second quarter, not really expecting to play. Then has to sit on, a stool for 2 hours waiting to go back out there. And that was just a rough game to get thrown into in general. And I knew him coming in, having a full week to prepare, all the confidence in the world. I had all the confidence in him, just seeing him up close, how he handles his business and all that, and just really excited for him. It's special for any rookie to get a start in this league. Obviously, at goalie, too. There's only 8 spots in this league. It's extremely tough to crack a roster in general. And, just how he did out there was amazing. He's so poised, obviously coming from such a historic program like Army, how it's run. But, just how he is in the cage, he makes the saves he's supposed to, and, he steals some too. You saw that trainer one at the end of the game. It was unbelievable. I thought he did phenomenal. I think the biggest thing about his game that I think is different from a lot of goalies, just how he was outwitting the ball. He was getting it out so fast and just throwing it on a rope to guys. You even see a lot of times he's heaving it down to the attackman, and we're up and out in 2 seconds. It's not like, other goalies don't do that, but that's just part of his game that I just didn't even know he had, and just so impressed with. And I think he's only going to get better going forward. And honestly, I just love playing in front of him.
I'm sure it was, a big build up for you, obviously, on Friday playing against your former team. But now that it's all said and done, what was kind of the emotion, going into it? And now that it is in the rear view for the first time, what was kind of just the overall thought playing against those guys for the first time as an opponent?
Yeah, I mean, I'd be lying if I said I wasn't thinking about that game for a long time. I was probably thinking about that ever since I signed with the Waterdogs. But in general, it was most important. I just thought going in the weekend, like, I'm not going to make this about me. It's just a game in front of us and a conference game, important game we need to win. Obviously, it was weird. I'm still close with a lot of those guys, even like Shelly, someone I was matched up with the whole game. He's one of my best friends. But at the same time, when that whistle blows, you're not friends anymore. Everyone's playing to win, and that was that. But definitely weird and a long time coming. I'm just glad we were able to get it done.
When you are matched up against, a Connor Schellenberger for the first time, in game action, obviously the past couple of years when you were with New York, you're practicing against him, and that's that. You don't have to deal with him at game speed. What were some of the challenges that you faced, PLL rules wise, and kind of just the pace of play guarding and defending a Connor Schellenberger?
Yeah, well, luckily we've had a lot of familiarity just going against each other. But like you said, practice and games are a little bit of a different animal. But at least I kind of knew what to expect out there. And obviously, watching his prior games, seeing how their offense is running. Obviously, I've known it for a few years, very familiar with a lot of their guys, and just kind of just knowing what he likes to do, what he wants to go to, especially in the pick game. And just, obviously picking up on who's setting the picks, where on the field. A little pissed about that first one that I got picked off in, but you just got to make the next play, and I thought I did that the rest of the game. But it was obviously a battle going against him. He's one of the best players in the world for a reason, and at the same time, as weird as it is, and just because it's Shelly and we're friends, it's fun to compete, and I think that's what it comes down to at the end of the day. But obviously, just going against him for years prior, and feeding off each other's knowledge definitely helped a little bit going in prepare wise.
So obviously, you took the lacrosse world by storm this offseason, flipping teams, going to a conference rival of yours when you were with New York, signing with the Waterdogs. I know you were on the players roundtable as well, talking about how it was, a stressful process for you. You're on the phone constantly for days
Yeah.
on end. Just take me through what that whole free agency process was from, the beginning point when you're like, all right, I'm going to test the waters. Like, I'm not going to, sign an extension. I'm going to see what it's like to be a free agent. And then take me through all the way to, we had Coach Cottle on earlier in the season, and he said, he told you if things go awry, give him a call. What was that phone call like with Coach Cottle?
Yeah, it was definitely a crazy process, and like I've said, not one that I've expected at all. And I've tried to keep it very professional. Obviously, you can't say every single in and out of it to the media, but just to dive a little deeper into it. Obviously the league had a salary cap increase that got announced. Maybe a couple weeks prior, or whatever. But at the end of the day, there was a 4 month period from when the championship happened up until free agency started where there was a window to negotiate. And even the year prior, you see teams now locking up their guys because that's the goal, protect them from free agency, and you want to keep your guys around, right? And obviously with the Atlas, we had a couple big name free agents coming out of the summer of 24 where I was eligible for an extension, and I was trying to get it done. We had those conversations, and apparently there just wasn't enough salary cap at the time to get it done. So I said, okay, let our guys get taken care of. I'm all good with that. I'm just going to go out and play and focus on that. And I didn't even think forward about, how that could unravel. But then, championship ends, and, I knew we needed to get a deal done. And I wasn't reached out to until, maybe a couple days before that period. And I thought it'd be just smooth sailing from there. And then, start talking and come up with the offer, and I was just breaking it down, and just things honestly just didn't make a lot of sense of where the numbers were coming from. I don't know if it was a lack of preparation or something, or maybe a conflict with the salary cap increase, but it didn't take a lot to see it through. Each team just got an extra boatload of money to put together, and honestly I wasn't even trying to break the bank. I just wanted something that made somewhat sense, and honestly was willing to come back on sort of a discount looking at what I didn't know. And then just because of the short timeline, that deal had to be done by Wednesday. And these conversations only started on Monday. I had to go back to people who were guiding me through this process, talk to them. And just the same feedback I got was like, this is not near of what's even reasonable. And then, free agency opens up on Wednesday because a deal wasn't done. And I start getting reached out to by other teams. And obviously, you could see it from the other side that was probably going to happen, and you got to prepare for that. But just seeing how it all added up, we go through. It starts Wednesday, and then I'm still trying to get a deal done that's somewhat reasonable, and I'm not even asking can you get where the other teams are? Just kind of meet in the middle, and I don't know. Some part of that on the other side is the expectation that I was automatically coming back, which I thought I was, and then you start talking to other teams and really seeing how you're valued, appreciated, and what you're actually worth, and then just trying to figure it out side to side. And then 4 or 5 offers, you kind of break down the whole process. And to me, it was more about just the future outlook, and you break down how everything was handled, and kind of make a decision from there. And it wasn't black and white, or I thought it was pretty easy to see just competition wise in free agency. Like, obviously the Waterdogs are a competitor, but my best friend from Cornell is sitting on the other side, waiting for that opportunity for me to, possibly come there. And, I don't know, I think there's just some false expectations on both sides and stuff that could have been handled a lot differently. And it led down the way it did. And, things happen for a reason. And, like I said, I was on the phone. It was taking up my entire day, like 30 minutes. My parents, former coaches, former players, just looking for a unified opinion. And after every call, I was getting the same one. It was like, hey, like you should definitely go to the Waterdogs. And it came down at the end, just back and forth, and just talking to Coach T, Coach Colin. There were a lot of things that went into that decision, from players, from the team, the coaches, future outlook, where I'm at in my career, and all else. And it felt right. It really did. And, I love a lot of those guys on the team, and, I will sincerely miss them. And, I know it's not how they wanted it to play out. And like I said, I didn't expect it to play out. That was just the hand I was dealt, and, kind of had to make an informed decision from there. So, looking back on it, like I'm glad things kind of played out the way I did, because I'm having a lot of fun. I love the team. There's nothing against the Atlas, and especially the coaching staff. Like the opportunity to play for Coach Tierney and Coach Cottle, like two of the most renowned coaches of all time. And you see why they are who they are and just how they run things. It's been great.
When you and for everybody that doesn't know, Gavin and CJ Kirst are thick as thieves, and when you have CJ in one ear, trying to recruit you to come over and play with the Waterdogs, and there's rumblings out there that Michael Sowers is trying to not have to be defended by you anymore, and it helps his matchups, and he wants to play with you, so that helps him continue to progress in his career, and you've always been his toughest cover. And I think when you look at the decision you made and how it impacted the Waterdogs, across the board, from a locker room perspective where you're reunited with CJ, and then at the draft you bring in another Cornell guy in Brendan Staub, and then it helps Michael Sowers where you're not defending him anymore unless it's practice, and it opens him up to be able to be even more versatile than what we've seen him since you've entered the league. And I think it just shifted the landscape so much. And when the process went through, was that something that like hit you eventually, like when ink went to paper? It's like, I was the first like big PLL free agent domino that we've really had in the league's history.
Yeah, I mean, it hit me a little bit. I wasn't necessarily focused on that, and that wasn't a point in my decision. But yeah, I mean, once it went down, it kind of, you know, felt like that a little bit just from seeing everything, but definitely wasn't a factor in my decision. And I think just, as crazy as I think if I were to sign with the Redwoods, I don't think maybe it wouldn't necessarily be as big just because it was, we just beat them, what was it, 13-11 in the semifinals, and, we're pretty much rivals. So I think that's kind of why it was crazy as it is. But if you looked at the personnel on the team and everything, I thought from the other side, that should have been top of mind, just to not let that happen. And evidently it wasn't protected or highly considered, so it went down like that.
When you get to training camp this year and you start meeting the guys, who's somebody that you've competed against a bunch of these guys in the past, but getting to know them on a more personal level, maybe for the first time, that kind of popped off the page to you? And how has the relationships with the guys in the locker room progressed as you guys have gone throughout this season? Who's somebody that you didn't think you'd really connect with, but you've really grown a friendship with in this locker room?
Yeah, I mean, first guy that comes to mind is Sowers. I mean, just going against him, you know, 8, 10 times over the last years, it's like you don't become that close with guys on other teams that you're matched up with week in, week out, trying to compete for a championship. So I really never knew him as a person. I've heard great things about him, and it's well exceeded expectations. Like he's honestly the man, and he's become one of my really good friends, and really enjoy being his teammate. Such an unselfish guy, great leader. One of the best players on planet Earth for a reason. And just seeing how he goes about his business, operates, and how he leads, the guys gravitate toward him. He's been awesome. I mean, even Kenny Brower, just fellow Long Island guy. I always grew up watching him, knowing his game, just because we grew up a few towns over. Never really got to know him. Had some mutual friends, and he's been my roommate every weekend of the year, and we've gotten so close. And he's someone I really enjoy being around. Phenomenal player, and just someone I enjoy taking the field with.
What's it been like kind of integrating yourself into this defense that is so young? Like, it is a young nucleus, and you're not old whatsoever, but you've been in the league since 2023, and it feels like you're the elder statesman almost of the defense. But coming into this group where it is Kenny, it's Jimmy Freehill, it's Marcus Hudgens, yourself, now Brendan Staub, Ben Wayer in the mix as well. What's it been like kind of getting to know these guys, getting to know their tendencies during games, and you guys kind of just becoming the nucleus that you want to become on that defensive end?
Yeah, for me coming in, it was interesting because I've never been in that situation before where, you switch teams, you go into a different locker room. And for me, the focus was the relationships aspect of it because, I can't just go in there and being like, hey, let's do this, do that. And in order for me to lead, I have to be close with these guys, and they have to trust me, and they have to want to listen to me. They could hear whatever I say, but are they going to listen? And that builds throughout relationships. I think the early weeks on, it was tough for me to speak up and lead in general because, I'm just a new guy there. I'm just trying to, let the play speak for myself and just play hard and let other guys follow. And that's always how I've led. But obviously, Coach T nurturing me into a different role, it takes time to build that. And I think we're starting to see it now. And everyone just looks at, what's done on the field and results speak for themselves. But adding a player to a locker room in general, there's so many things that go into that off the field, game planning, X's and O's, just relationships, leadership wise, that are invaluable that don't get discussed obviously because you don't see it on the stat sheet. But early on too, we were mixing, matching a bunch of different guys. Hess goes down. We're playing new shorties every game, so I knew it was going to take us a little bit, and I knew my role as a leader on the team, it was going to take a little bit because as I said, you got to build and nurture those relationships. And I feel like now we're at a really good point. I'm very close with the guys, and I can play a bigger role in that, and things are coming to show a little bit, and we're just getting better each week and kind of looking to peak at the right time.
And like you mentioned, part of your decision, like you get to play for Bill Tierney, one of the greatest, not just coaches, but defensive coaches that lacrosse has ever seen. What's it been like getting to know him and getting to know his coaching tendencies and how you guys can kind of help each other? Bill always talks about, whether it's in a press conference or conversations I've had with him, where, he leans on you guys in the locker room to help him continue to grow at the PLL level and coaching in the PLL. What's it been like getting to know Coach Tierney and being coached by just, one of the all-time greats?
Yeah, it's honestly been nothing short of amazing. Just who he is and how he coaches. It's something like I love to play for, and I look forward to playing for. And just how our relationship has grown from the day I signed. We're on the phone every Monday for an hour long, and even throughout the week, just talking game plan, X's and O's. How can we be better in general? Just to see how much he cares is eye opening to me, and it makes you want to play harder. It makes you want to do more, and it really has that effect on the locker room. Just who he is and how he goes about, leading and the team in general. Like it rubs off on the guys the right way, and he's also, he's a little bit of a harder coach, and in professional, I think sports in general, you don't really get that hard coaching too much. It's something I honestly really like because, you learn how to respond to that and it keeps you in check. And, I think that's a huge aspect to our success, especially this year defensively, whatever it is. But just being able to learn from him and just talking to him all the time, and obviously his defensive mind is as good as anyone in the world. It's been great, and honestly, I love playing for him.
When you also get to training camp and it's announced that there's a new coaching position added across the league, and the Waterdogs have Eric Law on the coaching staff, and you get to have arguably the most accurate shooter of all time at your disposal, who's fresh off of, his illustrious career. How valuable is it to have somebody like Eric, at a phone call away to just talk ball and learn from him and learn kind of just shooter tendencies that could be valuable going up against some of the greatest shooters that we've seen, across the league? And having Eric Law at your disposal, how valuable is that to you as a defenseman?
Yeah, I was thrilled when I heard he was coming on the staff. I mean, first of all, we were teammates for 2 years on the Atlas, so that familiarity, it was awesome to have, and just connecting with him and just seeing how he's played a role in our team's success. Being another voice, another set of eyes to watch film, coach the guys, and just who he is as a player. I mean, his career speaks for itself, but he knows how to go about it the right way and really make our team better in ways that a lot of people can't. So having him along has really been a joy, and enjoy just building that with him on the side, talking to him all the time, game planning, whatever it is, life. Just someone, if I need something, I can reach out to. Eric's the man, and I could say the world about him.
When you guys sweep the doubleheader this past weekend, and knowing you have another one in mid-August, that you'll have your home fans and you'll have Philly fans rooting for you for the first time, in a packed-out Subaru Park, how valuable is it to know that you guys as a team now can say to yourselves, hey, we can sweep a doubleheader? We know what it's going to take to do that, and we have one in a couple of weeks, but now we have one under our belt, and we know what it's going to take from everybody in the locker room to get it done again.
Yeah, it's super valuable. Experience in this league is, like I said, it's very valuable. Just with how the layout of the league is, not being able to practice, and you only get 12 games a year, so you kind of got to fall back on all your experience. So to get that one done, just see how we went about the process, definitely, advantageous to how we're going to go into the next one, and especially with our own fans being there, super helpful. You got the Denver fans. That stadium was packed out. They show out like for real. It always feels like an away game. Even playing there last year, on the Atlas versus the Outlaws, felt like an away game. And even this past game too. Their fan base is they're present, and you feel it. So definitely something we're looking forward to and really excited about.
How pumped are you to finally have Philly fans rooting for you? Because I know how tough it can be, being the quote unquote road team whenever you walk into whether it be Villanova or Subaru Park, having those Philly fans rooting against you and always rooting for the Waterdogs. How pumped are you to have them on your side now?
Yeah, I'm super pumped, honestly. Just growing up as a New York kid, I've always seen from the outside what Philly fans are like. Super passionate. They get a little aggressive, and you love that out of fans. So really glad they're on my side now.
For you, obviously, like you said, you're a New York kid. How awesome was it for you last season to, hoist that trophy for the hometown team and win a championship for a team that had New York across the chest and, kind of, check that box for your career and do it for your hometown team?
Yeah, it was super special. It's something obviously I'll look back on for the rest of my life. I think most importantly, that was my first championship, and it's something like I've been hanging my head on. I've been itching for my entire career. It's everything I've been working for, playing toward, and to get that one under my belt, it was huge, and it gives you a taste of what it's like and keeps you hungry to keep winning. Honestly, just falling short in college and just having to taste that experience from high school all the way up through college, even the pros. 24, we fall short in the semifinals, and you learn so much and gain so much experience on how to do things and what leads toward winning. And I'm confident that we got the right people, right culture, right coaches, top bottom, that we can do this in Philly.
How valuable is it too for you, to have PLL championship experience coming over in free agency to a team that the nucleus of this roster won that 2022 championship together, whether it's, Sowers, Kieran McCardle, Zach Currier, Matt DeLuca, like there's still a good core from that 2022 championship team. You have a CJ Kirst who won a NCAA title, just fresh off an NLL title as well. And just so many different guys who have won championships at different levels to kind of have that DNA in the locker room. How awesome is that? And how valuable is it to kind of be able to bounce off different tendencies and being like, hey, we all one way or another know what it takes to win a championship. A bunch of these guys in this locker room knows what it takes to win a championship at the PLL level. This is what it's going to take. And you guys can kind of, bounce off ideas, bounce off tendencies to each other to know that everyone's kind of on that same page of what it's going to be like and what it's going to take to get to that mountaintop.
Yeah, it's everything. People say like there's not a certain way to win. All winners can do it in a bunch of different fashions. So it's cool to see. When you put that much experience in one room, you try to collectively come to a certain way to do things and the common goal of what we're going to work toward. I mean, that experience is everything. You got guys who have done it. They know how to prepare the right way. They know how to build this team in order to get there at the end. So it's been fun just building. Obviously, the season's not over yet, so we got to see how it, everything plays out. But that's everything you want in a locker room: guys with experience, guys who have won, and just winners in general. And we're really excited on what we can build, together.
And then you look at, the outlook of this season. Obviously, you guys have another big matchup against Carolina this coming weekend in Columbus, but then you have that bye week, when the league goes to Boston before Philadelphia homecoming weekend. How valuable is that bye week going to be to kind of get you guys right, get as many guys, as close to 100% as possible, and go into that homecoming weekend as well as close to 100%, where you have two games, you're in front of your home fans, but to kind of have one more kind of, pit stop along the way, how valuable is that to you guys?
Yeah, it's huge. That week off, just everyone can reset, get their bodies right. Kind of focus on themselves for a little bit and do what they need to do to come back. In best versions of themselves. What we're excited about. Obviously we got to take care of business this weekend, but definitely something we're looking forward to, and just how that prepares us for that doubleheader.
You and CJ Kirst are obviously, thick as thieves. You guys are best friends. How wild is it watching him do what he's been able to do this year? And I know it's probably something you almost have the expectation of for him because you know what he brings to the table, but
Yeah.
it seems like he's doing something new every single week. How just awesome is it to have a front row seat to the CJ Kirst show here in 2026?
Yeah, it's unbelievable. I mean, it's something I've seen firsthand since the day he stepped foot at Cornell. And honestly, like you can ask any of my closest friends. Like I was telling them about him, and that this is going to be who he is from the day I've met him. Just his work ethic, his drive to what he puts out there. Like it's not a surprise that he's able to do what he does and why he's so successful. I'm just glad the world's seeing it, because like we've known it for so long, and it's finally gotten out there. I think his senior season at Cornell was a real breakthrough. You saw the talent and everything there, but that kind of put him above everyone else. And then just to see what he's done, in a few games last year, people are maybe even downing him. And even when I was going around free agency, like I was saying, he was a massive part of it. Like this guy is like, he's the best player there is around, goal scoring wise, everything he can do. Just you look at on the field, but how he elevates a locker room is like the most underrated part of his game. Who he is as a person, his positivity, it's contagious, it infects the whole locker room. And everyone likes to talk about what guys do on the field, but the value in players off the field is something that just goes so unnoticed. And that's something with him that people don't talk about enough. But yeah, I mean, I got a front row seat to it every week. It's so fun to watch. I'm glad I'm on the same side of it. And even just we get reps every week, and just going against each other one on one, just what that does for my game, his game, and how we can just bang heads, compete, get each other better, talk lacrosse, talk life, and build this through the next however many years. So it's been awesome. And like I said, like honestly, no surprise in what he's doing, just because of who he is and how he works.
And on top of that, you have another New York guy in Kieran McCardle who's been a longtime captain of this team. What's it been like for you getting to know Kieran and kind of just seeing the way that he does lead this team as the captain, both on and off the field, and just the way that he is kind of just this silent assassin where he's just done this for such a long time. He continues to climb up like the all-time ranks every single week, and it still feels like not that many people are talking about just how fucking good of a player Kieran McCardle is.
Yeah, it's a great way to put it. Honestly, Kieran's a guy. I've got so much respect for him, and that's grown just throughout getting to know him. But like to be doing what he's doing at the age he's doing it at, it's special, and it's very impressive. How he leads too. He's such a great guy. He's a guy that guys listen to, like really gravitate toward. And he's got a ton of experience in this league, and you need to listen to what he says. He knows how to lead a locker room, and he knows how to bring it on the field. Dude's an absolute competitor, and he's someone I love playing for.
And on top of that, you not only have a front row seat to the CJ Kirst show, you have a front row seat to the Zach Currier show this year. Talk to me about just the unicorn that he is and how he elevates you guys on, both ends of the field. He's willing to, pick up the short stick D-midi role as Dylan Hess went down. And it's like, hey, we need you to kind of be that do-it-all midfielder for us. And, Coach Tierney talked about in the press conference this past week. Like this is his 53rd team, and he's never seen a player have 4 assists and 10 ground balls in a game. And that's exactly what Zach Currier did this past weekend. How insane is that guy for just the way he's able to bounce around the field? I'm sure if you guys needed him to, he would pick up a pole in an instant and go out and play LSM or play close D. Like he truly is that true definition of a unicorn. What's it like having a guy like that on the roster that you can lean on in any situation, and just how valuable or invaluable is a Zach Currier?
Yeah, there's no value you can put on a Zach Currier. I mean, the dude's an anomaly, and just to see how consistently he's done this over how many years he's played, which is many, because he's in his 30s. Like he's doing this in the NLL, and then he's going to the PL and doing this. There's barely any people on earth that could even come close to the usage that he's put on every game. It's so impressive, and to have a guy like that goes out there and just does it, the guys follow along and they want to play harder for him. He's been awesome to be around. Like the man, such a great teammate, and just to watch what he does on the field, like you're almost in awe. I had to play against it for some years, and it was frustrating. I'm like, how is it? This guy's everywhere, picks up every ground ball, he does everything. You just don't find players like that. And there's a lot of guys that are compared to him. As he's getting older, whatever, he's still doing it better than everyone. And there's nobody like him, seriously. And just to have that on a roster, it's valuable in so many different ways. And I love being teammates with the guy.
Yeah, I mean, he's got the game-winning face-off for you guys this year that
Yeah.
saved a game for you, and it just seems like every week he's also doing something that we've just never seen before, and it's just unbelievable.
The appreciation level, it's off the charts. Like you don't find those guys ever.
And when you look at this defensive unit and you throw Staub and Weyer in the mix too at the LSM spot, but you see Marcus Hudgens able to bounce around. You see Jimmy Freehill able to bounce around between LSM and close D. And you see, what Brendan's been able to do in his rookie season. You see what Ben Weyer brings to the transition game for you guys when he's in the lineup. How cool is it to have, such an eclectic group of defensemen that are able to have that switchability of bumping down to LSM, going to close D, and being able to kind of be interchangeable almost and give you guys different looks that teams, 1 week they're preparing for, this grouping, and then Coach T makes that adjustment. And now, say Staub's playing close D and, Jimmy bumps to LSM, and, just the interchangeability you guys have, I think is such a benefit, and it makes you guys very unpredictable on defense to your benefit.
Yeah, I think you said it perfectly. Just the flexibility and the versatility we have, it's off the charts. And in so many different ways, in this league, like you need depth, but depth doesn't always come in that type of form. And guys go down in general, or guys, based on matchups, have to play different spots. That versatility is huge for us. And I think it's going to pay dividends down the stretch. You just don't really see it that often. And it changes roles that every guy plays in general. Like, I might have to play a different role if he can't do this or he can't move here. And, for me personally, like I can play my game, to whatever role they want me to play. And, Brennan can play a different role one game. Kenny can play a different role one game. I can do the same. And, it benefits us all personally, but collectively. And I love being a part of it.
And obviously, up until this past weekend, and obviously during the matchup in Fairfield, like Matt DeLuca back there for you guys, talk to me about just, the communication that both of your goalies have from Matt and Sean, and some of the similarities, some of the differences, and what it's been like playing in front of those two guys, and what type of leadership Matt's brought to the team as, one of the team's original draft picks, and he's been on the squad since its inception, and just playing in front of a goalie of his stature as well, standing, at 6'5", 6'6", and kind of giving a different look there, where you have such a height presence in cage.
Oh yeah. Matt's awesome. Like one of the best teammates I've been around. He's awesome to play for. I'm not like too into the tendencies with goalies. I kind of just let them play and ask them whatever they need from me. I'll go do it. But I mean, to break down his game, like he's been amazing at it for how many ever years he's been in the league. His stature is obviously very unique. He can see the ball, as good as anyone. And just to have him and Sean together, like they both complement each other really well. Obviously, you asked me about Sean before, just because he went in the last two games. But, that in all great teams, it's what you need. A guy goes down, you need the next guy to step up. And I think that's just a testament to our roster and how Maddie's done a great job building, that role with Sean and, nurturing him that, if his time came, he'll be ready. And that's exactly what he did. I don't know how things shake out going forward. I'm hoping that he gets healthy and he's with us the next week or whenever he's ready. But just to have two guys, like it's super valuable. And to see how they feed off each other, it goes such a long way.
And then on top of that, this past weekend, to have, somebody like a Tim Troutner who is a PLL vet, knows what it takes to win in this league, to have him at Sean's disposal as well. And for you guys, to have a veteran goaltender, on the sidelines and to be able to have just his presence, whether it be on the iPad, in practice. How awesome was it to have Tim with you guys?
Yeah, it was awesome. Best way to put it. I played with Timmy for 2 years just to see him back. He was having a blast with it. It's rare that a guy gets called in, week 10 of the season or whatever it is. But, our coaches do such a great job of, bringing guys on who fit our locker room. It's something we value a lot. Tim fit right in. He did a great job this weekend. He even went in for, I think, the last minute or two of the Outlaws game. So it was awesome for him to get, some run there. And, he's a guy, he'll be ready when he gets a call. And, however long we need him around, he fits the mold and he's done an awesome job.
Talk to me about the significance behind number 97, obviously making the jersey number swap. What went into just the process of the new jersey number, and what's the significance behind 97?
Yeah, not too much significance. I mean, obviously, I knew once upon signing that, Courier was wearing 77. People were saying, like, are you going to ask him for it? I was like, no, not a chance. Like, Zach's a legend, and I would never do that. One, like, I don't play for the number. I wore 88, 77, 97. I think you can make it any way it is. Number's just a number. So that really was not a big deal to me. And also, too, if you're calling a guy asking for his number, a guy who's a legend, he's been there for years, it doesn't rub off on the guys the right way. So it wasn't even a thought in my mind. And I was just like, I'm picking a new number. Broke down a couple numbers, see what was open. And, I was going back and forth between, a couple different ones. And I was just like, is there anything that sticks out about each of these? And then I was thinking, like, 97, well, I'm a New York Giants fan at the time. Dexter Lawrence was on the team, and my dog Dexter just died like 2 months before. And I was like, oh wait, that's the connection right there. It's got to be 97. So nothing too significant, but it's what made me put my finger on it.
Shout out to Dexter.
Yeah.
Obviously, coming to Philly as a New York sports fan, obviously had to be a little bit of a shock to you as just as an overall fan of sports, but now you're playing in the same city as arguably the greatest basketball player of all time. How cool is it that you're wearing Philadelphia across your chest and now LeBron James is also in Philly?
Yeah, it's unbelievable time for the city. I mean, just to see how that's going to play out, the buzz around it and what it does for the city, it's everything. I kind of look back on a guy who I really looked up to was Saquon Barkley, and just to see how that all shook out. And it kind of reminded me of a similar situation of, very similar details of how that all played out. So my first look was always like looking to Saquon and be like, oh, well, he changed team. He was able to do it. And, just to see LeBron here now, it's exciting.
And, you look at just the way that I think Philly fans have just been so receptive to you, and you guys haven't even played in Philly yet. How cool has it been to just kind of see the overwhelming response of Waterdogs fans, whether it's out on the road, social media, just kind of flocking to you and welcoming you with open arms?
Yeah, it's awesome. Just to see how the fan bases have grown since, locating in general. And now I'm a part of it where it's going to continue to grow. And I'm hoping to, ignite that as much as I can. And, Philly fans, like I spoke on before in general, super passionate. They care a lot and they don't care to let you hear it either. So I'm excited to be on this side and just help grow that fan base in general.
Training camp was at Subaru Park this year, and just an unbelievable facility. How awesome is it that that's going to be this year's homecoming venue as well, where you get to play two games at I honestly think it's one of, if not the best, stadium that the PLL goes to, just for the overall optics, the overall scenery, where you have, the river there, you have the boats going under the bridge. To have that as, your home stadium this year, how awesome is that going to be? just that whole facility and that whole kind of just scenery being, Waterdogs homecoming weekend.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. Obviously, we had the chance to play there last year in the semifinals, and I was kind of blown away with the venue and everything, even the turnout. So we're fired up over it. Even just being there for training camp, seeing the facilities, everything another time. Like it's gorgeous, that place. Best way to put it. And hopefully down the road when we do locate, fingers crossed that'll be our home base.
That would be incredible. I was talking about that with my parents actually the other day. I said, how awesome it would be if, the Union and the Waterdogs are, one and the same at the same training facility and same stadium. I think that would be incredible.
I think there's a good shot.
I'm manifesting it because I think it would be not only great for you guys as players to have a facility to utilize like that, but just the stadium, I think, is just second to none for the size that it is and what it does for lacrosse and attending, soccer games there. It's incredible. But seeing the way that the PLL packs that place out, no matter if it's, a semifinal, a championship, that place gets filled to the gills, and it's going to be awesome to see it for the regular season for the first time.
Yep. Fired up over it.
How cool has it been to kind of have a front row seat as well to the WLL this year and watching the women's game, when they've lined up with weekends that you guys are there and seeing just the unbelievable athleticism and talent that those four teams have and the compete level that they have, and how awesome is it going to be, hopefully sooner rather than later, you guys will have a women's team to kind of pair off with the Waterdogs.
Yeah, it's been awesome to watch, how the league's evolved. And, I wasn't, too familiar with like women's lacrosse. Obviously, I didn't have it like a team really in high school. So I got more used to it in college, and then just having to see the WL, how talented all those players are, I'm rooting for them. And, obviously we're all one entity. So just trying to grow as much as possible. And I think it's really cool to see, the inaugural, like the start of it, because I think we're going to look back in 20 years and it's going to be a bona fide, league in the world, just to say, we were there for the start of it. But it's been incredible to watch it week in, week out. And they're obviously super talented. So it's been great to see.
And you guys will have a nice little, thing to tune into after your first game of your homecoming, because the WLL championship game also at Subaru Park, which I think is
exactly. Yeah, that'll be great.
Talk to me about the optics of, obviously this is your first year playing for Coach T, but it's the first year for him too where he doesn't have the GM role on his shoulders anymore. Coach Cottle obviously in the fold. Have you noticed a difference of playing for a coach where they're not carrying that GM role and their sole focus is just on the coaching side of things?
Yeah, there was definitely a difference. I think I saw it in free agency, just from talking to Cottle, and he was more about, free agency itself, the salary cap, the team's outlook, and then Coach T was more about, the team itself. Now being on board, Cottle's still heavily involved with, the coaching side of it, just because, you need his knowledge and his input. But he definitely does play the GM role, and Coach T definitely plays the coach role. So just to seeing how they integrate that and they balance it so well too, I think it's really unique. Obviously, I never had a separate GM, and really just to see that firsthand, it's been awesome. And I think it's very valuable for teams to have a separate GM and a coach. Obviously, it's a lot on their hands to coach a team and, deal with all the outside logistics that come with being a GM. So those two have been great, and I don't think you can think of a better 1-2 punch than those guys right there.
You guys going to Columbus this weekend, and obviously it's a nice little homecoming for Marcus Hudgens, who spent some time at Ohio State. I feel like he's one of the guys on this team who is just kind of, puts his hard hat on, brings his lunch to work, gets the job done, and nobody really sings his praises a lot more than they should. Like, he should be talked about a lot more in the echelon of one of the better defensemen in the PLL, and I think he's shown what we were talking about earlier, just the versatility he's shown individually this year. What's it like being a teammate with Marcus and what he brings to the table? And just talk to me about his unique style where he does have that versatility. It doesn't matter if you put him at LSM, doesn't matter if he's playing defense, like, he's going to win that matchup and he's going to make sure he wins that matchup.
Yeah, Marcus he's been great. Teammate wise, on the field, off the field, like he's someone I really enjoyed getting to know. I mean, I think he's playing great this year, and he's been able to be flexible for us. He started some games down low. Now he's been more up top for the last couple games, but things change every game, and he can be wherever. He's super valuable in that aspect. And I think in this league, just with how many great like dodging midfielders there are, you need guys who can cover the ball. And not a knock on LSMs, but their usual thing is playmaking, playing offense, and just to see how we've built up our identity of putting guys up top who might not necessarily be pure LSMs, but guys who we value more in covering the ball and playing harder, a little bit on defense. And I think he's a guy that fits that mold. He's willing to do whatever it is for the team. And like you said, just super underrated. I think, we've got a lot of those guys.
And you talk about the dodging midfielders the past couple weeks. Your guys' midfield, it's been like Jack Hanna and the kids, where it's been a bunch of the rookies and then Jack Hanna out there. And I know Coach T joked about a couple weeks ago where he called Jack to let him know like he was kind of going to be the only veteran in the midfield and he was going to be playing babysitter almost. How impressive is it to kind of see just this collection of rookie just offensive weapons for you, from Silas Richmond to Matt Collison, Kyle Lewis, Josh Yago come in, and it's like they haven't skipped a beat from the moment they left college to moving into the PLL, and things have really clicked for all four of those guys, no matter where they're playing. How awesome is it to kind of just have that injection of youth into the offense for you guys, and just seeing what they bring to the table with all of their unique skill sets?
Yeah, it's been unbelievable to watch, and credit goes to Coach Tierney and Coach Kyle for bringing those guys on board. And as good as they are on the field, like they're even better people off the field, and they fit exactly what we're trying to do. No surprise in all their success. I watched a lot of those guys play in college, and some of them are even better up close. Like I could honestly say it about all of them. I think one guy that jumps to mind is Kyle Lewis, just coming from D2, just how good he is something that I don't think anyone really expected. I watched him a bunch on tape going into the draft, and I was like, this kid can definitely play in this league. Just to see it up close of how really good he is, and also just having him on Long Island, I will do one-on-ones during the week, so I've really got an up close look at him. Silas is Silas. He's just getting going. Bumping from attack to midfield. I think teams are about to see a lot more out of him. And he's starting to really hit the ground running. I mean, Yago is, I think, one of the best players to come out of the draft. Like, I think if you draft again today, he'd be a first-round pick. His size, athleticism, how he sees the game, what he's able to do. And then Collison, too. He's kind of exactly what people thought. Just an absolute hammer from the outside. Can dodge, can pass, can score an efficient clip. And just that influx of young talent, as you said, it's so valuable. Just not a knock on the midfield from last year, but you just see the change in pace and what that does for guys like CJ and Sowers. You're able to draw slides, move the ball. Guys can stretch it from the outside or get their own. It's incredible to see. But even just what we have for next year, the year after, just being able to build that young core together, it's something really valuable in this league that kind of goes under the wraps.
And I think having those four guys too, like you said, kind of looking at last year to this year, it's opened up a lot more for Jack to allow him to kind of just be himself again and not have to, carry the weight of doing too much, and he can kind of just get back to being Jack Hanna. What have you seen, since this influx of all four of those guys being in the lineup from Jack and allowing him to kind of just play loose, get his hands free, and kind of be Jack Hanna that the world knows he can be?
Yeah, I didn't get to obviously talk on Jack before because the rookies. I mean, he's done an incredible job of being the leader in that group. Honestly, pretty similar situation that I'm in, where you got a bunch of younger guys, but you're really not the old guy, but you got to take this leadership role. I mean, he's been incredible. For the last couple of years, he's been at the top of every team scout. Getting the poll every single game, and he can do a lot of things really, really well. Whether he's dodging, scoring, shooting, finishing on the inside. You don't really find too many midfielders that are as skilled as he is. And I think the thing that sticks out the most about him is just he's a straight up competitor. Like, he's a dog on the field. He's got his teammates back. great to hang out with off the field. He's got incredible knowledge of the game too. That's very underrated. And he just plays so hard, and it's infectious on the guys. And you're kind of seeing it where it's might be one guy's day one game and the other guy's day the other game, because there's only so much you can put emphasis on when you got five midfielders who could really do a lot out there. And I think Jack's unselfishly like taking on his role. There's some games where he could probably do a lot more than he's doing, but he's doing what's best for the offense. And watching him is real fun.
When you have the Dylan Hess injury happen, week 1, and since then you guys have honestly been playing, it's obviously Zach Currier and then 2 short sticks, where the short stick defensive midfielder, a lot of people would argue, is the most valuable and most important piece on the field. How impressive has it been to kind of just see the way you guys have cycled through, and then finally getting a guy like Casey Wilson back, from his injury? What was that like to have kind of just the versatility at short stick, to have a guy like Casey who can, stretch the field for you guys? He can play both ends, kind of like Zach, and move up and down for you in transition, but also get back and be a lockdown defender as a midfielder.
Yeah, I mean, to start with Hess, right? Like, not many teams have these like 1A type short stick DBs in this league, and they're super valuable, as you said before. So, when he goes down, it kind of changes the way a defense operates, right? You kind of know who you have to slide to, and you trust a guy on ball a little bit more than another. And Hess was kind of like an extra pull out there, and it changes kind of the way a defense plays. And that was a little bit of a challenge for us early on, because we were bringing new guys into the lineup. We went from Nakai, Tate, a couple different guys. Patty Eldridge was in there. Just trying to find our lineup. And that's also a struggle in this league, because you don't get to practice, so you kind of got to test it out in the game. But then we got 3 guys finally playing together. Get our system down. Even for Zach too. Zach was never purely playing short stick defensive midfielder. He'd take a few shifts a game, but how he's bought into that role and everything we're doing, you're kind of seeing it come together. And you need that chemistry. And just to get Casey back this past weekend, obviously seen him play in college, heard all about him from Coach T. But everything checked all boxes. He's as good as people make it out to be. So having him on board, it's going to be huge for us down the stretch. And I think Witch and Hayes have done an unbelievable job as well, just competing, doing everything they're asked. And we just got a great group of unselfish guys. It's more of, you just need the reps and you need the time playing together to get on the same page.
Which Coach T and CJ brought up, like, you guys have this core that are on Long Island and in New York that are able to kind of get together more so than every other team, where you guys can kind of, find a field and go out and get practice reps together in a quote unquote unorganized, practice. But how valuable do you think that is, where you do have this, giant collective of Waterdogs players in particular that can, hop on a train, go to an open field and get, midweek practice reps in with each other to kind of get that 1% better?
Yeah, it's honestly, it's a massive advantage, just having the opportunity to play hard, compete, and like actually practice during the week. It goes such a long way. Obviously it's a drag, and it's not fun. Having to train an hour, go back, but you know what it's for, and the drive's there, and every guy wants to do it. We know it's going to pay off in the long run. I mean, it's also fun too. You get together with your teammates, get to hang out during the week. That's been great, but definitely a different, change of scenery, just from training on your own time, not really getting those reps, but trying to, get your reps in general, to have that. It's a huge benefit.
And I think too, when you do have, where it is such a group of you guys on one singular team, that not only helps on the field, but I think it just helps off the field as well, especially for you coming in, your first year with the squad. Like, you
Absolutely.
get to just grow that relationship with your teammates that much more.
100%. I mean, you hit the nail on the head with that.
And I mean, you look at just the way you guys performed in Denver, and you've performed when you guys have hit those strides this season. I think it's reflective, when you guys go on those runs and you're able to kind of just showcase the talents. Like, I think those little things where you guys are meeting up, midweek to practice. You guys have the off the field chemistry continuing to grow. I think it reflects, and a weekend like you guys had in Denver kind of showcases what that extra 1% of, kind of focusing in on what a championship mentality really is all about. It gets reflected in a weekend like Denver.
100%. I mean, I don't think you could say it any better than that. It's, how much work you put in is proportional to the results you're going to get. And, we just live by that and have fun doing it.
Talk to me about Cornell and what went into, you choosing Cornell as well. I think, obviously being the number 1 overall pick, your draft year and everything put a big spotlight there. And what Coach Busick's been able to do there has been unbelievable. But, when you're getting ready to, go to college, what went into your decision to choose Cornell?
Yeah, I mean, not much actually went into it after kind of breaking down the story, but I think my recruiting story, it's actually crazy, and I did a little piece on it on Inside Lacrosse a couple years back, but I mean, you don't get into every single detail with all that stuff, but I mean, to take you through it, like recruiting was different, the rules when I was being recruited, so kids were committing 8th, 9th grade, and you got all these classes that are filled out by the time you're in 10th grade. And I was probably 5'5", 140, 150 pounds when I was going through that club circuit. So no one was even looking at me. And then, you get on a club team, you start playing with the guys. And in 10th grade, I got cut from my club team. So I was basically like, I'm screwed. At the time, I loved the game. Like I was working hard. I really wanted a shot to play in college. And honestly, the results I was putting out there, like it showed I can play in college, I was still pretty good for my age. It's just I was extremely undersized, and no coach thought that was going to translate to the next level. So I go through the recruiting process, like genuinely thought I was playing well, and my head coach for high school was Steve DiNapoli, former captain of the Waterdogs. And, he's a guy who played pro, college, successful career, and he always told me I was good enough to play. So kind of took his word for it, and just playing throughout high school, throughout club, I had to join a new club team. Obviously really weird. That club director really believed in me, thank God, because that ends up going be how I went to Cornell. But I got no calls, no offers. I was reaching out to every school, just wanting an opportunity to play somewhere. Like I really would have played anywhere. I was reaching out to D3 schools. I still have all this documented on my phone. Nothing from them. A lot of no's, Nescacs, whatever it is. And then Coach DiNapoli played for Coach Amplo, who was at Marquette at the time. And he called him and he's like, hey, like I need you to take this kid. And like, here's why. And Coach Amplo bought in, and I went on a visit there, ended up committing. It was my only offer. I loved the coaching staff, maybe not my first choice to go to Milwaukee, but like, they gave me an opportunity. I was appreciative of it. So I ended up committing there. And at the time, my club director is like, you got to keep playing because someone at a bigger school is going to see you for what you're doing. I'm going against these kids who are committed to UNC, Yale, and I'm doing fairly well on them. And even in high school, just going against all these guys, teams, and I'm just like, well, why won't somebody give me a chance? And at the time, I never even spoke to a college coach because they never gave me a call. And I was like, all I need to do is just get on the phone and try to sell one of these guys and just tell them my honest story. And at the time, like I was growing a little bit. I probably got to like 5'7", 160 maybe. By the time my senior year rolled around, I'm playing all summer. I'm committed to Marquette. Nobody's calling. Went to a couple prospect days, nothing. And then I'm in the middle of the application process for Marquette, and this is late September of my senior year, so like fairly very late. I get home from a football practice, not even like really thinking about lacrosse, and my club coach calls me. He's like, "Hey, like pick up the phone. Like you got to answer. Like you're getting a call." I'm just like, what? Like, I thought it was for Middlebury because that's where he was like trying to push me into going. But like those talks kind of fell through. So I was like who the hell is calling me? Like mid-September. And it was the Cornell coach. And I also grew up like 4 houses down from Max Sebald. So like I always idolized him. I literally grew up playing with a Cornell dyed head through 6th, 7th, 8th grade. So like that was always top of mind, but it was never even a thought because I was like, I'm not getting recruited by these guys. I'm not good enough. So we got on the phone, me and Coach Stevens. He's like, hey, Coach Miller, Ken Miller, send me your highlight tape. He's like, we got a spot that opened up. Like, absolutely love your game. We spoke. I just gave my story. Like, I was like, hey, like, look, no one's even taking a chance on me. Like, I believe like my work ethic and like who I am as a person is going to drive me to be great and elevate the guys around me. And they bought into it. And, I went up there for a visit. They gave me an offer, and it was obviously a no brainer, but my life changed from there. And, just made the most of my opportunity. And I'm still so grateful for, I mean, even like every Thanksgiving, like I would text my coach Stevens and just be like, hey, like, thank you like so much, like for just giving me the opportunity. And, just worked my ass off day in, day out, and so grateful for my time at Cornell. I mean, that place got a special place in my heart, changed me as a person, and just so grateful for how it all played out. But it's crazy to look back on. Just I even tell like these parents and these kids that come to me about recruiting stuff, and I'm like, it's not a perfect science. Like coaches are looking at thousands of kids. You're gonna miss guys here and there. It's just how it goes. But I think the evolution of being a smaller long pull, like that's really what held me back. And now you're kind of seeing it, how they evolve. I think with myself, guys like Ajax, BJ Grill was a huge guy. He recruited me at Marquette. Jake Pizzino, it's same thing. So
That former club director has to be like kicking himself every day. That coach
yeah,
when you were a
we still,
sophomore.
oh, them, yeah. I mean,
They have to like every step that you took forward, and they see your progression, and inevitably get drafted #1 overall, and now see
yeah,
you as a champion at the professional level, see you get the free agent payday. They got to be kicking themselves every day, being like, what the hell were we thinking?
yeah. I mean, it's just the way
Better
some
off for
things
you
go.
though. Better off for
Yeah.
you. Talk to me about the progression you've seen from the PLL, and just the growth from year one for you to where everything is now, and how things have just continued to evolve and change and grow as a player, and just seeing how, things are continuing to push forward as the league, gets older and older, as it's in year 8 now, to being, at the forefront of being a full-time professional league.
Yeah, I mean, things have evolved pretty quickly since I've been in the league. Just seeing the ins and outs of the business. You obviously start with the massive media rights deal they got done with ESPN. Just the visibility we have to be seen on ABC, ESPN. Like it's awesome. It's great for the league. The crowds have grown. I think them locating the fan bases in general, and the salary cap of the league has grown, and I think that proves growth at the end of the day. And just to see like where it's going, and hearing all the rumors, and you see the seed round they just raised 100 million. People are buying into the league and betting on it, and it's great to be a part of. Obviously, us players play a major role too in helping grow the league. So I think that's special in general. But yeah, I mean we're all really optimistic of where this thing's going, and just to see how many guys are being full-time lacrosse players, and it's only going to grow from there. Once owners come into play, and you sell teams, have guys living in market. I don't think we're very far away from that, and I think it's going to be special to be a part of.
Rob Mack, part of that $100 million investment there. Which one of your teammates do you think would be the best cameo on It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia?
It's a good question. I'd probably go with Sowers.
It's got to be Mr. Philadelphia.
Yeah.
How fun do you think football season's going to be between you and him this year? Eagles, Giants, and kind of just bouncing, jabs back and forth at each other once football season rolls around.
Yeah, no, it's going to be fun. Obviously, the Eagles have had the upper leg for a little bit, but I mean, the Giants got a lot of young talent coming in, and they could be a pretty scary team going forward.
What's the mindset? Obviously, coming off of 2 big wins this past weekend, you can get pretty high, and rightfully so. Feeling good about yourself, sitting atop the conference at 6-3, but you also don't want to get too high and kind of overlook what is next. Obviously, as a squad, what's kind of the mindset going into this weekend in Columbus to, cherish the weekend you guys had, but also now kind of turn the page and use what you guys did in Denver as fuel to push you forward in Columbus for your next matchup against Carolina.
Yeah, obviously trying to stay even keeled. Like you know, you can't be too high or too low. And honestly, I think that's the biggest challenge of this league, and I think that's why you're seeing how volatile the results have been this year. Especially because the talent over 8 years, so many limited roster spots, every team just closing the gap. But in general, like you got to be able to weather the storm, right? Like you lose big one week, you're inevitably hungry the next week, hungrier than coming off a win. And it's just that challenge of, trying to be at your best, even though you're winning, rather than backs against the wall. I think you see teams in this league play their best when their backs are against the wall, usually coming off a bad loss or seasons on the line, playoff game, right? I think that's honestly the biggest challenge. And, that goes into how volatile the results have been. So that's something, we've noticed. Obviously, we won a couple straight, went into that Archers game, kind of laid an egg, and then you come back hungry, you win two tough games in Denver, and it's just that challenge of like, how do we stay hungry? And it comes within, and like you got to weather the storm, ups or downs, and really just trying to be consistent with that going into the back end of the year.
And I know, this weekend too, obviously with the bye week after, but there's a little extra on top. You guys win this weekend, your playoff spot's clinched. I don't know if you knew that or not, but
I did not know that.
yeah, with a win, you guys are in the playoffs. You're in the dance. So a massive, just cherry on top with a win there to kind of push you guys that much more. Is a win, and there's the ticket punch to the postseason.
Yeah, that'll definitely be a driving force. But I think in general, this team they got us earlier in the season, and we're looking forward to getting revenge on that.
What's the pregame routine for you? Going into a game, what are some things you tend to do to get ready for a game? Whether it be that pregame meal, pregame music, kind of getting your gear ready. What goes into a pregame routine for Gavin Adler?
Yeah, I like to just like listen to music just the whole time until we're ready to go out. Just lock in. Some guys like to talk to each other. Do things differently. I just put my headphones on. I like to stretch, get loose. Feel good going in, hydrate, and that's really it. You only get about hour and a half till from when the bus rolls up. So really, just getting in that zone and making sure my body feels right. Then just getting ready to go out there and compete.
Who's on the playlist?
I got kind of clowned over saying what I listen to, but I mean it's a mix of stuff. Mostly it's just like cinematic or like horror music, just like no words, because I just think it locks me in. Sometimes like I'll listen to like Kobe talk or something, and like just hits me in the feels, and gets me kind of in that mode of just what I need to be going out for the game. If it's regular music, like I'll throw on rap sometimes, but it's more just like I like the beats without words, and I don't know, it gets my mind right.
I like the cinematic. That's. I don't know who's clowning you. I think that's a cool vibe.
Yeah, until people try it, you'd be like, "This is crazy," but then you listen to it, it feels like you're really in a movie.
Yeah, I love like the music where it is just kind of the beats and it just builds up, and then you get that.
Yeah, like
You feel
Batman, Dark
fucking
Knight
Avenger.
theme song. Yeah, exactly. That's it.
I like that. I think that speaks to just how elite of a player you've been. You go out there and you're a fucking superhero on the field, man.
Nah, it's not that. It's just something that mentally gets me right.
I dig it. What's the post game look like? Is there a post game meal that you tend to lean towards?
Honestly, with the PLL, it's really like whatever they give us. Like I like usually like a big steak or something, just because you burn so many calories. You need the protein, but nothing too specific. It's really just whatever they give us, and then just hanging out with the guys, having fun. Enjoying that time because you don't get much of it.
Talked to Kyle Lewis earlier this year, and he said, he's kind of been boxed in his life. He hasn't really traveled outside of his small little, square in New York all that much. So he was looking forward to traveling a bunch. Is there a city that's typically on the PLL, travel map that when it rolls around you enjoy going to?
Oh yeah, definitely. I would say San Diego and Chicago are the two, like, right off the bat. I mean, Denver's really fun, obviously, great crowd, but I'd say San Diego probably one, Chicago two. I think they're just, great cities. The weather out in San Diego, the beaches, what you're able to do after the game, in Chicago in general too. Great scene out there, great crowd. Just something you look forward to.
Yeah, I've heard nothing but great things about both of those, from just the in-game and then obviously what you're able to do,
Oh
in your
yeah,
downtime there. It just seems like they're like two of the biggest player favorites and even like employee favorites to just go out to San Diego and then
yeah.
go to Chicago. Gavin, best of luck this weekend in Columbus. Go kick some ass, take some names, clinch that playoff spot for the Dogs.
Appreciate you having me on.
Big shout out to Gavin Adler. Big thank you to Nick Oxnam as well for helping book Gavin for this week's edition of Waterdogs Weekly here on Underground Sports Philadelphia. Just an incredible conversation there. And don't miss out on your Philadelphia Waterdogs taking on the Carolina Chaos this weekend in Columbus, Ohio. That game going down 3 p.m. Eastern Time on ESPN Plus Saturday, August 1st. You don't want to miss it. It's going to be an incredible game, and with a win, the Waterdogs clinch a playoff berth. So big thing on the line there for the Dogs. They want to get that done, head into their bye week, and then gear up for Philly weekend, August 15th and 16th for Waterdogs homecoming at Subaru Park, where we're doing a live show, potentially more than one, that you don't want to miss out on. So definitely best of luck to Gavin and the Waterdogs this weekend as they gear up for the Carolina Chaos on ESPN Plus at 3 Eastern Time. Our Waterdogs Weekly series would not be possible without our incredible, and I mean incredible, presenting partner, and that is the city of Vineland. And listen up, guys. One of my favorite events of the year is on the horizon, and that is also one of Vineland's most anticipated events of the year. It's the 9th annual Vineland Food Truck Festival, returning to downtown Vineland on Sunday, September 13th from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. Enjoy delicious eats from 30 food trucks, shop local craft and merchandise vendors, and experience live entertainment throughout the day featuring the Steely Dan tribute band Kid Charlemagne, direct from Philadelphia, DJ Ben Arsenal, and much more. Bring your family and friends for a full day of food and music on Landis Avenue. And for more information, you can contact Special Events Coordinator Sheena Santiago at 856-794-4000, extension 4169. Again, the 9th annual Vineland Food Truck Festival returns to downtown Vineland on Landis Avenue, Sunday, September 13th from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. For more information, contact Sheena Santiago, the Special Events Coordinator for the City of Vineland, at 856-794-4000, extension 4169, Vineland, New Jersey, where it's always growing season.
Hello, I'm Mayor Anthony Finucci. Vineland, New Jersey offers both a great business location and an outstanding quality of life. But don't just take my word for it, the experts agree. We're proud to be recognized as a premier food processing and logistics hub, one of New Jersey's most affordable and desirable cities, and one of the best places to retire in the country. Visit vinelandcity.org and see how our resources can work for you. Vineland, New Jersey, where it's always growing season.
The Philadelphia Phillies, everybody. This team is going to send me into just a spiral. This team is in a free fall like no other. They are 2-8 in their last 10. They get swept by the Miami Marlins down in Miami. And I just truly I have no words for this team right now. This team has blown such a massive opportunity that was in front of them to take the post-All-Star game hype and buzz and energy and run with it, and they've absolutely tripped over their own feet. They have found a way to absolutely squander what was a prime opportunity in front of them. 2 games back in the division going into the All-Star break. and now they're 6.5 games back of the Braves. This team is a mess. They can't hit. The bullpen is atrocious. Don Mattingly has no feel for this pitching staff, and Bryce Harper is getting criticized for stating the obvious. Bryce said, "We need help." When your star player comes out and says, "We need help," I think there's justifiable cause to listen to that star player. Now, could that star player be playing better? For sure. Bryce Harper has not been good since the All-Star break. Even before the All-Star break. Probably since July 1st was the last time Bryce Harper was really hitting at a caliber level that you wanted to see from him. But you can't ignore the fact that this team has simply just fallen flat on their faces, and it's not just Bryce. Okay? It's not just Bryce Harper who is failing this team right now. And he's probably further down on the list of issues, in my opinion, than some of the others. We need pitching. We need hitting. Like, I understand you want to try to make Gabriel Rincones Jr. work. It's not working, okay? He's got to go back down to AAA. You got to make a move. There's rumors that Dalton Varsho is a target for the Phillies. I understand the optics there of Dalton Varsho, but he doesn't move the needle, okay? He's a very fine player at this point in his career. He's another left-handed bat. And it doesn't solve the issue that the Phillies need a right-handed power bat in this lineup. And quite frankly, an article came out from Matt Gelb saying that Bryce Harper and Dave Dombrowski are still beefing with each other. They still don't get along. They don't see eye to eye. To me, you keep the star player here. There's way too many people online talking about Bryce Harper wanting out of Philadelphia. I don't see that being the case. And maybe I'm dumb for thinking that, but I just don't see that being the case. I don't see how you let one of, if not the greatest free agent signing of this era of baseball walk out the door because you want to keep Dave Dombrowski over him. I just don't understand the optics of that. Dave Dombrowski has made 2 quality trades in his time running the Phillies, and that was Brandon Marsh and Joan Duran. Those are the 2. Outside of that, it's been a whole lot of just little sprinkles here. I need Dave Dombrowski to, pretend like this is a giant breakfast. I need pancakes. I need waffles. I need bacon. I need sausage. I need everything out on a silver platter for this team, because right now it's not a meal. This team is leaving a lot to be desired, and I just don't. I don't know where you go from here at the deadline. I don't know what the plan is. I don't know if they're just trying to one-stop shop with the Blue Jays, with all the names that have been thrown around with the Blue Jays recently connected to the Phillies. But this team needs, open heart surgery and not Band-Aids put on it. And it's tough to do open heart surgery at the trade deadline. It's just scary that this team is falling flat on their face at the most important time of the regular season. And Don Mattingly clapping back at Bryce Harper, I didn't like that at all. I think that was a very, very poorly calculated move. It looks bad, especially because Preston Mattingly is, the second in command to Dave Dombrowski. And it is messy. Don Mattingly did not have to say a single word about that. That's not his job as the manager, in my opinion. And it just looks bad optically when you go out, especially right before a game, and talk like that. I had issues with that. It really bothered me. Don Mattingly has no feel for this pitching staff, and I'm baffled by this team. This team has left me speechless post-All-Star break. Losing a series to the lowly Mets, losing a series to the Dodgers that you should have absolutely won 2 out of 3, losing a series to the Yankees that you quite honestly should have swept, and then getting swept by the Miami Marlins, who had lost 12 straight games going into that series. Like, be fucking for real. This team is too talented on paper. They're not playing like it, but they're too talented to be playing like this. And it drives me absolutely insane. It drives me insane, and they're going to lose the city real quick if they don't figure some things out, because you got the Eagles right around the corner. You got LeBron in town. The Flyers are the upstart team now that feel a lot like the Phillies when they were kind of coming into their own. And what we're trying to do here and build up the Waterdogs, they're in first place in the Eastern Conference in the PLL as well. Phillies are going to lose a lot of goodwill if they don't figure some things out real quick. There's a lot to figure out for this team, and I don't know if they're going to have enough time to figure it out, and that's the scary thing. That's the scary part of this whole thing, is I don't know if they're going to have enough time to figure all of this out and make it all work. I just don't. I don't know if it's possible. Am I out of line? Am I overthinking too much? Who's to say? But this team right now is a shell of themselves, and they have a lot to figure out, and a lot to figure out very quickly. If they don't figure it out soon, they're going to be left in the dust. And I don't know if they have what it takes to recover from that. I genuinely don't know if they have what it takes to recover from just this piss poor play that they've been putting out there for everybody to watch. It is deplorable the way that this team is playing. And I don't have an answer. Maybe you guys do. Speakpipe.com/undergroundsportsphiladelphia. Leave me a voicemail how you're feeling about the Phillies. If you got to get angry, because this team deserves to hear the anger. They deserve to hear how pissed off you are at the way that they're playing right now, and it's 1,000% justifiable. I don't know what the deal is. We are going to try to be live on Monday afternoon leading up to the actual trade deadline. Once I get home from the day job, we're going to try to be live for as long as possible, just live reacting to all the trades that go down. But this team has very little time to get the wheels moving in motion to figure out what they want to do with this trade deadline and what this team is going to be in August and September. And for their sake, October is what they need to be really thinking about, and knowing that this team is not going to survive in October as currently constructed. Phillies Talk there, brought to you by our awesome pals over at Bino. Guys, Bino is the next big tabletop game for your man caves, your she sheds, your parties, your tailgates, whatever it may be. You get the Bino board out, you're going to be the talk of your event. It's paper football meets foosball for the next big tabletop flicking experience. Get your officially licensed MLS, Premier League, Serie A, League One, all the World Cup boards, and so much more from our friends at Bino. On their website, you can get accessories, apparel, and so much more. Use the link in the description so Bino knows you're coming from us. Fill up your cart to the gills, and then when you go to checkout, use code BinoBennett62 to get 10% off your entire order from our friends at Bino. That's BINHO BENNETT 62 for 10% off your entire order from our friends at Bino. They're truly the best in the game, and you don't want to miss out on the opportunity to take advantage of all the boards that they have. Gear up for the tailgates. Breaking out the Bino board at the tailgate is the ultimate power move, okay? So use our link in the description. Shop with Bino. Get 10% off your entire order when you use code BINHO BENNETT 62. That's Bino Bennett 62 at checkout, and you get 10% off your entire order from our friends at Bino. And we thank Bino for being a proud partner of Underground Sports Philadelphia. That is all I've got for you guys on this one. Make sure you're following us on the socials at Underground PH PHI across the board. Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, Threads, LinkedIn. We're on every social platform. Please subscribe all across the socials. Subscribe on Apple and Spotify as well. Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts in audio form. Leave those 5-star ratings and reviews. It goes a long way for helping this show continue to grow. Helps more people find our entire catalog of podcasts from Underground Sports Philadelphia to Outside the Box, Underground Circuit, The House Show with Patty Pitts, and so much more. Subscribe. Leave those 5-star ratings and reviews. Subscribe to the Underground Sports Philadelphia YouTube channel, youtube.com/@UndergroundSportsPhiladelphia. Smash that like button. Click the bell icon so you don't miss a single video from us. And leave a comment down in the comment section. And share the video with your people as well. Share the video with your people and subscribe. youtube.com/@UndergroundSportsPhiladelphia. Big thank you to Security21 Security Systems and Paul J. Gillespie Incorporated for their continued support of this podcast. And this has been episode number 868 of Underground Sports Philadelphia, presented by the City of Vineland. I'm your boy KB. I'll talk to you on Monday as we gear up for the trade deadline. We will probably have the episode out late on Monday, just in case anything with the Phillies happens leading up to the deadline. Just be aware, be in tune with that. But that's how we're going to rock and roll. We want to see what happens at the deadline. We don't want to miss out on anything and not talk about anything. So, yeah, the episode will probably be out a little bit later than usual, but it's all good. It's all good in the hood. But this has been episode number 868 of Underground Sports Philadelphia, presented by the City of Vineland. I'm your boy KB. I'll talk to you all on Monday. But until then, I'm getting the heck up out of here, and I'm signing off. Peace.